Look at the weather.
It's beautiful here.
Non-stop rain.
Oh, man, it is a blazer out there.
It's cold and it's shivery.
It is cold.
Really coming down here.
I really enjoy your weather reports.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, we're talking weather in a whole new way. From historical events to what's coming up, plus weather news, science, safety, fun facts, and more.
I like where this is going.
This is Weather Weekly. Weather Weekly with Wish TV Storm Track 8 meteorologist Marcus Bailey.
It is Weather Weekly. Welcome. Good to be with you here. Had a week off, quick week off last week, filling in for some vacation time. So we're back at it here. Going to do things up a little differently if you are a regular listener of the show. We usually do some interview-based stuff, but I think there's a lot going on here that I do want to just spend a lot of time on kind of the weather that's upcoming now. I also want to spend some time on a little bit of a tornado outbreak that happened several years ago this week, and it did impact parts of central Indiana. We're also going to spend some time next week talking about the 2011 tornado outbreak that impacted parts of the Deep South, as that anniversary is coming up as well. And so we'll be doing a lot of this here on the podcast. We do want to sprinkle in some interviews as well, but this is a weather-based podcast, and there's obviously things that change all the time. So we're going to speak on that. But obviously the big story, and we'll spend some time on this, is kind of a look ahead. Boy, April started off so nice, didn't it? We had several days of 70s. We were pushing close to 80 at one point before we hit the middle of the month. Now, the last week here, we're recording this on April 20th. The last week, we've been below average. With numbers into the 50s for a good portion of the last 7 to 10 days. But we're talking about a very late season snow. By the time you listen to this podcast, it's already going to be moved out. But there's some significance with it. It's also some significance with the cold as well. So we're going to kind of speak on that a little bit. We're also going to be talking about the warm-up that's going to be ahead. We'll look ahead to the next forecast here. For sky gazers, we do have a meteor shower coming up, so we'll talk more about that. Cool story. I know it's not weather-related, but I'm a science nerd at heart, and really what kind of got me going into weather and science in the first place was being a lover of all things space shuttles and stars and planets and comets and meteors and all that stuff. Meteor shower. I mentioned that's going to be happening. That's one thing, but the Mars helicopter, if you haven't been checking this out, super cool story, and they were actually able to get this helicopter kind of up and moving this week. So we'll talk more about that, and we'll also kind of address some things that you've been asking on social media on kind of abbreviated version of Weather Weekly. We'll talk about that coming up. Welcome back to Weather Weekly. It is the week of April 19th. And again, thanks for hanging with us here. This is going to be kind of a different version of Weather Weekly, where we don't have an interview guest here today, but we are going to chat about weather. And I do want to kind of reach out to you, those of you that have been listening, and I greatly appreciate it. I know we've been kind of sporadic here. But if you're ever looking for a subject that you want us to cover, whether it's somebody to interview or just something specifically weather related, we like a lot of user interaction here, and we'd love to take your questions and answer those. You can always reach out on social media. I'm on most platforms: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can find me on Snapchat. I don't use it very much, but I mean, if that's a way that you go for it. You can reach me via email at marcus.bailey@wishtv.com as well. And I'd be happy to kind of address anything here. This podcast is just kind of whatever we want it to be, and we can have fun with it here. It's with the good people here at Wish TV, the bosses. They've allowed us to have fun with this, so we greatly appreciate that. So what we're going to spend some time on, there's a lot of things that are kind of going on around our area upcoming. And I think the big story here, and obviously as you listen to this podcast, this particular event has already happened. But I think there's some significance that we should talk about. I won't dive super deep into the forecast because it'll already be past that fact at this point. We are recording on April 20th, and we're talking about a very late season winter surge of both snow and cold. The snow, I think, is going to be impressive in that it's the latest that we've had snow here in Indianapolis in over 30 years. You have to go back to 1989. the last time that we had measurable snow. Now, that year, it actually happened in early May. And I recall doing a story for this when I first started at Wish TV about 6 years ago about one of the latest snows. It wasn't the latest snow on record. I think May 9th is the latest measurable snow in Indianapolis. This one was on May 3rd in 1989 and picked up about 0.2 of an inch. So it wasn't a lot. But what was interesting, now this was back in the days, those of you that may be younger, you maybe not kind of recall this time period, but this was back in the day when really Indianapolis 500 festivities were an all-month thing. They basically opened up practice around May 1st, May 2nd, May 3rd, that kind of thing. And then you had just nothing but practice, qualification, and then that was obviously race day by the end of May. The race is this Sunday, always the Sunday before Memorial Day, unless weather impacts it here. So anyway, 1989, May 3rd happened to be opening day at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, so it was practice day. Now, they did end up practicing, but they had to delay several hours practice because it was snowing in the morning. And that's, I think, maybe the only time, at least in recorded history, that has happened. So pretty rare error for this time of year. But what we had forecasted anywhere from a couple of inches, and I think northeastern Indiana may see a little bit more than that. But what's also pretty significant is there's going to be near record low temperatures here for the mid and latter portions of April. Average temperatures typically should be into the 40s. And at least at the time as we're recording this, we're going to be forecasting lows around 30. The record low for the 21st, so that's Wednesday morning, is 28. So we're going to be knocking on the door of that as we head into Wednesday morning. It's going to be a killing freeze, which is unfortunate because a lot of things have been blooming early across not just our state, but really much of the Midwest because of the early season surge in temperatures that we had. And so we'll see, that might do some damage to some of the colors that we get for the spring that we typically get for the month of May as we get more traditionally in the growing season. Hopefully not. But again, you're going to be talking about, hard freeze across much of the area. So not good news. And the other thing, what's interesting is this is, it's not just us that's dealing with this severe winter weather, if you will. I'm kind of looking at the maps right now. There are freeze warnings right now that stretch as far north as central Michigan, goes through all of Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, Oklahoma, and even northern Texas under freeze warnings for this particular date here for Tuesday night into Wednesday. So this is rare air. Kind of has that feeling of that Valentine's Day storm. You remember that? We talked about it. Biggest snow we've had in a long time here in Indiana. But if you also remember, it did a lot of damage with power outages in Texas. Same system. It has the same look in terms of if you're looking at a warning map. Same kind of areas that are impacted. Obviously, it won't be as high of an impact storm as what that Valentine's Day system was. The ground's just awfully warm across the plains in the Midwest that we're not going to see a ton of snow stick. But I did say on the air that it was going to be heavy enough snow that if this would have been in February, this would have been a lot of snow. A lot. Maybe not rivaling what we had in mid-February, but I think it'd be a pretty significant amount if all of it immediately stuck on contact. So pretty interesting. We'll keep an eye on it here. But it just kind of goes with the active pattern that we kind of really started diving into in the late winter months. We've obviously seen the severe weather outbreaks down in the Gulf Coast states coming out of a La Nina winter here. And if you want to go back to my podcast with Mike Ryan, where he did the winter forecast, and if you fast forward to near the end, we kind of start speaking a little bit about the upcoming spring season. And I said, look, if we're going to be going into an active end of winter, does that mean that we could be talking about an active spring? And he said, absolutely. He said he looked at a lot of analogs that had a lot of similarities to what we experienced here for the winter of 2021. And he said all of those had a lot of action coming out of the winter and going into the spring in terms of severe weather. And we really have yet to hit the prime severe weather season. That usually happens late April. May is one of the most active months. So is June. So we're not in the core of that yet. So we'll wait and see. I know it's hard to think about that when you're talking about winter weather and cold, but just a week from now, when we come in and record our next podcast, we're already forecasting highs in the 70s. We'll see if that holds true, but it does show some signals of warming up, and that's not unusual when you get cold weather this late into the winter season, or this early in the spring season, if you want to say, that it doesn't last long and usually bounce back pretty quickly. So we'll keep an eye on that, but many areas under snow by the time we wake up Wednesday morning. What else do we have here? I saw an interesting thing here, just a quick note, and I may speak a little bit more about this here coming up. But California just reported their third driest year on record. And that's significant because they have been dealing with a historic drought for much of the western half of the state. It's interesting. You could really cut the United States in half. We've had a lot of moisture over the last several weeks, right? We had some good snows. We've had some rain here and there. We've had some pretty good rain over the past couple of weeks, in fact, here around the Midwest. But you get west of the Rockies, it is a different story, and they are not just dry, but they are exceptionally dry, and then they've got the heat to go along with it. So not good news out there, especially because that's an area, obviously, as we go through the spring and then again in the fall, that is their wildfire season. And if you're as dry as they have been, that easily sparks up and spreads those fires. So not good news for them. Also, if you are a stargazer here, got some cool things that you may want to check out. Earth Day is coming up this week. So that's something we as scientists all want to celebrate into Earth Day and helping our planet be the cleanest and best it can be. But something else to kind of wrap it around Earth Day is, and it's the first in 4 months, a meteor shower that we'll be able to check out. So that's kind of cool. April 21st, so that's Wednesday, and goes until the early hours of Thursday, April 22nd. So check that out. It is the Lyrid annual meteor showers, if you want to check that out. Now, as of right now, I've got things dry for the forecast for Wednesday and the Thursday. You could see at peak 15 to 20 meteors per minute. That's according to the American Meteor Society. And that's all around the globe, but a little more visible in the northern hemisphere. So these would obviously look like shooting stars, and you'd want to get away from light pollution. So if you live in the city, you'd want to get out of town. There will be a moon out, so that may add to some of the light pollution. But if you're a real early riser, the moon will set by around 3:30 a.m. or 4 a.m. For Eastern Daylight Time. So that would help with some of that light pollution there. So another cool thing that you can check out there if you are a stargazer and you like that kind of thing. Internationally, there was a big super typhoon out in the Pacific that is impacting parts of the Philippines. Looking at a Reuters article right now, and hopefully I'm pronouncing this correctly. This one is called Suragi. Super Typhoon Suragi. And keep in mind, gang, those of you that don't know, typhoons are just hurricanes. It's just a different name when it's out in the Pacific as opposed to the Atlantic. They call them typhoons out in Asia. So done a little bit of damage around the Philippines. They're seeing, let's see, typhoon force winds. So those are hurricane force winds, about 110 kilometers or 68 miles or so from the center of the storm. They have evacuated about 100,000 people, according to Reuters. The core of Suragi is not expected to hit land, but it is a massive core, about 195 kilometer per hour winds, which is pretty nasty. And it's creating some pretty significant flooding as well. So we'll keep an eye on that as we are now greatly approaching the hurricane season here in North America. And of course, we're coming off the busiest hurricane season on record in North America, and the busiest Atlantic specifically, hurricane season on record. Most names on record. If you didn't know, by the way, they have officially stopped using the Greek alphabet for overflow names. We had to go deep into the Greek alphabet last year. They actually had to retire a couple of Greek alphabet names, so that's why there's a certain threshold that the National Hurricane Center will get to when it comes to a significant storm, and when that happens, that will not be reused. Take Katrina, for example. The name Katrina will never be used again by the National Hurricane Center. Andrew is another one that will never be used. Hugo, that will never be used. There's so many more, and there were several that were retired this year as well. So something that we're watching, though, out into the Pacific is this tsunami. And again, hurricane season starts in August. Some articles that I've been reading, and I won't go too in depth with, but maybe an early start to the hurricane season, maybe more so into June or July, that we could get a named storm. So we'll keep an eye on that. You have to remember, it's interesting. You think back to last year and how busy it was, but I distinctly remember, I think during it was late spring and early summer, that I did a breakout story during Daybreak last year about the African dust. Do you remember that? There was a big plume of African dust that came off the deserts of Africa, off the Sahara, went all the way over the Atlantic Ocean, and ended up filling with the jet stream in through the Gulf of Mexico. And it was a big story. A lot of people were like, we want to check this out. It was going to become more of a milky sky as opposed to more of a robust blue sky, and made for some really vibrant sunsets. I don't know if we saw major effects from that this far north, but they definitely did down in the south, places like Florida and Alabama and Mississippi and Louisiana. I think even Tennessee and Arkansas. I saw a lot of photos shared from some of our meteorologist colleagues down there on some pretty colors at sunset. But I bring that up because that dust creates dry air, right? It's sand, it's dust, it's dry air. And so that limits really any tropical development. And how quickly things can change as we kind of started rolling through the rest of the summer. That African dust conveyor belt just shut down, and boom, here we go. And it was off to the races with a record-breaking 2020 hurricane season. So we'll wait and see how this one plays out. The official forecasts haven't come out yet. We always watch for the ones with some of the professionals and professors from Colorado State University. I know it's an interesting place that an official forecast will come out of. The National Hurricane Center does their own forecasts as well, but Philip Klotzenblock is the professor's name. He's a doctor. And he's at Colorado State University, just a brilliant man. And he comes out with his own forecasts, and he should be having his come out here relatively soon. So we're going to be looking forward to that. Lastly here, before we kind of get to the upcoming forecast here and wrapping things up, I just think this is cool. This is not weather related, but it's something I've been paying attention to a lot. So the rover on Mars obviously has been up there for a while now, but the big story that came out of NASA and Mars on Tuesday was the deployment of this helicopter. It's basically like a drone, I guess, is what it looks like. It's called Ingenuity, and they finally got it up and running after some delays with software and some technical glitches over the last week or or so. And so I'm reading this article from the AP right now, but it is the first. It is the first powered flight on another planet ever. First aircraft flight. And so what's cool about it, if you didn't know, now the thing is, it weighs about 4 pounds, right? NASA basically called this kind of like a Wright brothers moment. Wright brothers, the first in flight, right? So what they did was they took some fabric off of the Wright Flyer, and which I'm guessing is probably at the Smithsonian. It might be somewhere else, but I'm sure they probably have parts of it in the Smithsonian. And put it on that drone just because of the similarities in history when they had their first flight, the Wright brothers at Kitty Hawk, North Carolina in 1903. So I think that's a pretty cool moment, right? Now, it was a 39-second, 10-foot flight that went over Mars. What I thought was interesting here is the flight controllers here. The NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory in California declared this a success after receiving the data and images via the Perseverance rover, right? That was the rover that landed several weeks ago. By the way, not a cheap drone or they're calling it a helicopter. $85 million. A little bit more expensive than just kind of your average drone that we fly around. But what I found interesting, I kind of got sidetracked here, but what I found interesting was that it took, let's see, let me find this here. Ground controllers had to wait more than 3 hours before learning whether the pre-programmed flight had succeeded 178 million miles away. And the first attempt had been delayed a week because of a software. I mentioned that earlier. So that's pretty cool. That's quite a delay, too. Can you imagine? Obviously, you have to pre-program something like this. You know, if any of you are a drone operator, I have my drone license. Could you imagine having to go on a 3-hour delay trying to fly something? So obviously they don't have like sticks that they're just kind of moving it around and waiting to see where it goes. This had to be a pre-programmed flight on a planet that they just really don't know a whole lot about outside of, the rover being there, the pictures that they have from that. I know they don't have a lot of the things that we'd have to worry about down here on Earth, buildings or trees or anything like that. But look, you've got mountainous terrain there. It's not completely flat on Mars. So you'd have to kind of, worry about that. And if you get a little bit farther away from the rover, you're kind of getting into uncharted territory here. You'll have some mapping that's been done by satellites over the years, but this is new territory. I think it's cool. It's so neat. And it's cool, just the direction the whole space program is going, whether you're talking with what Elon Musk has been doing here over the last several years to now they have uplinks for internet in space, and now you're getting a lot more exploration on Mars. Just really, really cool on something you just think about. We think about how much we have advanced technologically speaking over the last even just 10 years, but 20 years, 30 years. But there's just such a vast universe that we have to explore that we don't know much about outside of us, the moon a little bit, Mars a little bit, some of the photography that we've had from other planets. So it's cool. Probably not a lot of info that's going to come in my lifetime, but it is neat to see that the development is really cool on where we're going with that. So we'll keep an update on that. Something that we'll kind of report on here over the next several weeks. I think this is also interesting. We can throw some weather related stuff here. Ingenuity, the helicopter on Mars, this is from the AP article here, had to be sturdy enough to withstand the Martian wind and is topped with a solar panel for recharging the batteries. Crucial for surviving the minus 130 degree Fahrenheit Martian nights. It's a little cold up there, right? So very cool. Very, 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 very cool. So that's what I have right now and things that I've been kind of watching for. Pretty busy here as we look ahead to what will be an active weather week and just kind of looking at the forecast here ahead for much of central Indiana and the state for that matter. Mentioned the snow that's going to be rolling in Tuesday night. Chilly temperatures on Wednesday with highs in the mid-40s. We should start to see numbers bouncing back to near 50 on Thursday and 60s return for Friday and Saturday. Next chance for rain coming in Saturday for the weekend. And then it does appear, by the way, this will be the last weekend of April. It does appear that we'll start to warm things up back to the 70s as early as Monday on the last week of April, and 70s may hang around for a little while. So any snow that accumulates is going to be melting pretty quickly. And then we move into May, which is a busy month around here, both sports-wise and social-wise in Indianapolis, with the Indianapolis 500 returning to its home date on Memorial Day weekend. And of course, it's a very active month as well on what we anticipate to be potentially a very active month as we gear up for severe weather season, which is always a good reminder. Make sure you guys have a severe weather plan. I always recommend weather radios in your home. I think they are just as important as smoke detectors in your house. So make sure you get that done and have two ways of getting alerts. Weather radio, the best way. Another good way is via your cell phone, whether it be during the WEA alerts that are come with every cell phone, or you do it via numerous apps, and there's a lot of good ones out there. I will always plug our Storm Track 8 weather app. It is free. It's based on your location, so it doesn't matter where you go. It will alert you to any severe weather and lightning strikes as well as we start getting into more active weather. We'll wrap things up here for this week's issue of Weather Weekly coming up next. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in on this week's edition of Weather Weekly, a weekly podcast all about weather. And again, if you didn't catch it in the beginning of the podcast, we want to hear your feedback, your comments. This is a podcast that can evolve, and we want to make it whatever you want here, weather related, whether it's interviews or topics or discussions with some of our other meteorologists here at Wish TV. We want to help you out here. We are here for you, and we're allowed to have some fun with this. So please reach out to me on social media, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Just search for Marcus Bailey Weather. You can also email me anytime at marcus.bailey@wishtv.com. Next week, we're going to be talking a little bit about the significance of a severe weather outbreak that happened April 27th, 2011. And it wasn't a big deal here in Indiana, but if you are a weather nerd like myself, it was a big deal down, for much of the country. It was a huge story, one of the bigger outbreaks we've had in recent memory, and we will kind of revisit that as we'll be looking ahead to that anniversary at the end of April in 2011. Impacted much of Mississippi, Alabama, Tennessee, and then eventually into Georgia and the Carolinas as well. We'll catch that next week on Weather Weekly, your weekly weather podcast all about weather. And don't forget, you can check out all of my past weather podcasts, many of them interviews with some great guests. And we'd love to hear your feedback on all of that. And we'd love to have you join us on next week's Weather Weekly as well. Make sure to check out all the other great weather podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Discover more from Storm Track 8 Weather and Wish TV. Online at wishtv.com, and when you follow Wish TV on Facebook. Plus, be sure to check out more great podcasts from the All Indiana Podcast Network now at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.